You're putting yourself underneath sympathetic or fight or flight stressors, which is what social media and TV actually are. You think that they'd be parasympathetic because they make you exhausted, but that's because they've been bringing you in sympathetic the whole time. Oh, there's this new story. Oh, there's this new thread. Oh, there's this new drama that you have to care about, and do that over and over and over again until we can sell you something because you're exhausted your system.
A cool thing about John, at 12, he decided he wanted to work in neuroscience and neurotechnology. And here he is as the CEO of NeuroGear and creator of ZenBud, the world's first ultrasound-based vagus nerve simulator.
The more that you fire certain neurons together, the more they wire together. The less you do, the more they don't. The key to stimulating your vagus nerve consistently means that you...
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better, well, actually, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Beyond the Norms Health and Longevity Podcast. What if the real reason you're anxious, inflamed, exhausted, or unfocused has nothing to do with aging or hormones? Everyone is chasing supplements and stimulants, but the real master key to energy, sleep, and emotional stability is the vagus nerve. Jonathan Hacker, I'll call him John from here on out, is here to expose the system that's being ignored by mainstream medicine. A little bit about John. First, I was told by my good friend Mark Young that I needed to meet John, and then I accidentally bumped into him at Dave Asprey's The Business of Biohacking event. We had an amazing conversation, and I had to share. I am a little envious of him, but we'll get to that. A cool thing about John, he is doing exactly what he wanted to do since he was 12 years old. Crazy thing is, at 12, he decided he wanted to work in neuroscience and neurotechnology, and here he is as the CEO of NeuroGear and creator of ZenBud, the world's first ultrasound-based vagus nerve simulator. He has a vision to help us bridge neuroscience, consciousness, and technology, and to help us make stress a thing of the past. Hopefully we can help him with that during this interview. John, thank you for joining us today.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, Chris. I feel like you've just done everything we need to do on this podcast. You just said it all. Like I could just lay back and relax. I loved it.
Hey, that's my job. Don't try and steal my job on my podcast.
I'll do my best, right. Chris. I'll do my best.
All right. Before we jump into your area of expertise, I like to go further back. I like to go much further back. What was it like growing up, little John, or maybe it was Jonathan, or maybe Johnny? Where did you grow up? What were your parents like? And if there was some event or someone you could pinpoint as the reason you would ultimately become a neuroscientist, an entrepreneur, what or who would that be?
Well, this is a great way to start things off. I don't know if I've actually done this with the podcast yet, so I love it.
All right.
So little John, back when I was younger, I think one of the biggest events that really made me decide to go this direction was seeing how my parents lived their lives and realizing that's not how I wanted to live my life. For better or worse. And they're great people. My father's a computer scientist. My mom was a lawyer who decided that maybe being a lawyer wasn't where she wanted to be. She's too nice of a person. She's too kind of a person to be a lawyer. Very frankly, you have to have you have to have a spine of steel and be willing to hurt people to do law right. And she wasn't willing to hurt people. And I saw that and I'm like, I want to do more with my life. I want to do something that'll actually impact people. I want to do something that will help free them from where they've been. Because at that time, I was struggling with the onset of OCD, and it got worse throughout the years, and this just kind of hammered back in that lesson where I didn't want people to have to go through that same experience. For anyone that has experienced OCD or very severe anxiety that's in your audience, they'll know what I'm talking about here. And I think even outside of that, you can still understand it, because I think we all experience this to a certain degree, but there are certain times in your life where you end up feeling like you can't make the decisions that you want to make, that you are being chained in a certain way, and that you can't be who you want to be. In the case of OCD, that ends up manifesting a severe anxiety relating to a trigger and then a tic to try to remedy that anxiety, and to the point where you don't have control of yourself anymore. And that's some of the worst feeling in the world, just being completely out of control. Not because you could be out of control of life, and as long as you're in control of yourself, it's okay. You'll continue work, you'll continue doing what you need to do. But when you lose control of yourself, that just really, really sucks. So that's part of what I'm passionate about. The other thing is I saw an anime back in the day when I was a kid that talked about virtual reality, and I got really obsessed with that concept, kind of tying back into the OCD, and that's where the neurotech angle came in for me. So I guess that's a quick overview, Chris.
Yeah.
We can dive into any of that if you'd like.
And where did you grow up? And as you think about entrepreneurship, right? So a computer scientist, a lawyer, not necessarily kind of the entrepreneurial pathway.
So I grew up in upstate New York, Brighton, actually, which is close nearby to Rochester. And the thing that drove me to entrepreneurship, I think more than anything else, was how often people said that I could never do what I was saying I was going to do. Because I said I was going to build X thing. And then they say, no, you're not. You're what, 12, you're 13, you're 14, you're 15. You got to go get a PhD first, and then you probably won't. Like, it's kind of ridiculous seeing how much pushback I got in growing up. And that didn't actually change, because I went to college, which, looking back on it, had pros and cons. I was able to find some really, really cool people to work with, and they're currently part of the team and active on the team doing what we need to do. But realistically, the educational value wasn't really there for me. And I don't think it is there for a lot of people, to be very frank. And that could be a whole nother podcast, Chris, to be honest with you. But one of the things that I really saw was constantly being told I couldn't do something. I'm the kind of person that where you say, you can't do it. I'm like, okay, I'm still doing it. Watch me do it. I'm going to do it regardless. And I think that helped push me a little bit out of my comfort zone and the comfort zone of my family. I mean, like, I do have some small business expertise in my larger family. Like, my grandmother on my father's side runs a small flower shop, and they have for years, but I didn't really get that from them. At least I don't think so. I got that from the people in my environment telling me that I couldn't do it. And so I did it anyway.
So just knowing that there's somebody in the family who has been an entrepreneur, like owning a flower shop, that alone, right? It may not be overt, but it can actually open the door. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay.
You mentioned kind of some OCD. Did you have some of that kind of growing up younger, or you said it kind of really started?
It really started in around 11 to 13 range, actually with the onset of puberty, which is its own very interesting concept. And I was able to kick it when I was like 20, 21. So it got really bad when I was like 18, 19, to be honest with you. But yeah, right around when I went to college was when I was able to really kick it. Finally, it took a very long time because it was very bad, but I tried to hide it for a very long time too. Trying to seem strong or trying to seem healthy when you're not. It's a lovely cycle, but that just made things worse for sure.
Did you have any kind of coping mechanism that you recognize as
the
odd
coping mechanism? Yeah, the coping mechanism is a lot of times the tics, which I had a number of tics. One of them was with doors for me. I like to open and close them a number of times. That one was very obvious for folks, but a lot of people just wrote it off as me being weird because I was always a little bit eccentric. I mean, usually if having a 12-year-old start going into neurotech is eccentric by definition, man. Like I've always been a little bit on that side of things. So that got written off a lot of the time, though some people definitely noticed.
Yeah. All right. So at 12, it's a young age to decide what your future is going to be. In fact, well, I guess a lot of people decide at 12 what they're going to be, and then they change their minds. Right. Yeah. So maybe they do have
a bit more
idea.
Stubborn than most people, Chris. To be honest with you, I think that's I think that might be the long and short of it is I said I was going to do this, and then I got very, very stubborn about, I'm going to do this.
Very cool. So as you're going through your undergrad, and if I'm right, you got 2 degrees in 4 years.
Yeah.
These are not easy degrees. One in biomedical engineering, and then neurotechnology, and then the other one in neuro-entrepreneurship, right? So which is, I think they made that for you.
Yes, it was an individualized degree that we crafted directly for that. They were actually 5-year degrees, because at RIT you spend a year on co-op and essentially working with companies, which I took each of those sessions and used it to build the foundations of this company. So that was lovely too. And I honestly, like my last year out of the 4 years I was there was me sitting in one class that was an MSD class, which was also working on the company. So we started doing full-time work on the company, that I actually started doing full-time work on the company like really early in university, like first year. Before that, I was really trying to figure out the base foundations of the science that we were going to be approaching. And the fact of the matter is, like, I was a little bit too arrogant when I was younger. Like, when I was in high school, I thought I could do all of this by myself. Which was very much not true. And I was like, the only reason why I haven't been able to do it to this point is because I haven't had the resources available. And so I got to college and they had this lovely hackerspace, and I built a base prototype of this method I had come up with, and it didn't work whatsoever. And I'm like, okay. We got to rethink some of the mindset here. We got to rethink like a little bit of the steps here. I might need some outside help to get this done. And that's when I started recruiting for the team.
When you said it didn't work whatsoever, so maybe get into what that means, right? Because are we talking about the physiological response or the actual?
No. This was a base. So what I had been doing is, and this is something that actually isn't even in the tech space today, is I'd come up with a different way of neurostimulation, and required that we see very certain temperature changes, and the temperature changing method that I wanted to use wasn't working appropriately. And so actually it was after that we came upon ultrasound in the space, because it had been growing very slowly over time. It turned out to be way better than the method I was coming up with, just from a safety, from an efficacy, from an establishment point of view. The method I had come up with when I was younger would still have some benefits, but not worth the amount of time and money you'd have to invest into making it a reality. So we switched over to ultrasound, which was honestly the much better approach anyway.
Was it a piezoelectric kind of like heating up?
Well, no. This was actually back in the day. This was using. Are you familiar with infrared neurostimulation at all?
I mean, I think I understand what it means.
Okay, cool. So, like, they're especially looking for like cochlear implants. They were taking a look at infrared neurostimulation to. It's very slight heat differentials is what you're looking for, which will cause neurons to jump into activation. And the problem was it was all invasive. So I was taking a look at shifting the waveform up or down to try to get a little bit more penetration to do direct brain stimulation with that. And it's somewhat feasible, but not very feasible, and not super highly specific, because the type of sort of frequency you're going to have to go with to get through the skull ends up making it just wide swath type stimulation, which isn't what they did. There's plenty of other things that'll do wide swath stimulation. Ultrasound being, I think, actually one of the better ones to do that if you want to go that approach. It can also go specific. So again, it's honestly just the better tech
for the task at hand. So I think I know the answer to this question, but I feel like one piece of the question is still good. So between the age of 12 and completing those degrees, did you have any doubts? And before you start, if you were forced to take another course of study, what would it have been?
So there were definitely periods of time where I was questioning if this was the path I wanted to go. Part of that is, like, when I was really young, I actually have some on the bookshelf, on a shelf you can't see behind me. I had these notebooks filled with ideas, and I still have some of them, and I've established that they are not only feasible, but haven't been done pretty much by anyone else in the industry yet. Like, those are... once ZenBud is in a really good place, I'm going to get out those notebooks at a certain point. And along with, I now use my notepad on my phone, to be honest. So, but anyways, like, I was considering like maybe a different idea, maybe a different approach, but I honestly, like, there's a couple driving forces that kept me on this particular path. One of them was that really early obsession with neurotech that I had growing up. Like, there's a sunk cost fallacy to this, which is almost a benefit to persistence and motivation. It is a fallacy that you purposely play into to allow yourself to keep going. And I think the other piece of it, too, is that we were seeing really good results, physiologically speaking, and with the engineering side, especially on the latter half of the process. Like, after we actually got things started, but that was probably only like 2-3 years ago that we really things started to click and started to really roll together.
Very cool. And if you could not do what you're doing now, would it be pick up one of the books behind you, or are they very kind of closely related?
Well, no, I could pick up one of the books behind me. And so my brother has type 1 diabetes, and that's something that I've wanted to help him with for a very long time. I've had some ideas on that for a very long time. I actually talked with some people over in the Mayo Clinic about them, and they thought it was feasible. So I found that as really good validation. There have been a number of people that have tried to poach me from this company, Chris.
Yeah.
Especially like going to like neurotech events and symposiums at like 17, 16. The number of people trying to poach you or like mentor you, there was a lot. And I really appreciate every offer into that. I was too stubborn I just wanted to keep working on this and make this a reality, which has turned out really well. But if I decided to give this a rest, I would have probably gone with one of them to learn the tips and tricks of the trade for a little bit. And I could see a universe where I did that and things still worked out well. But we kept persisting, and it turned out that was what we needed in this particular case.
Very good. All right. So from your website, ZenBud is the world's first ultrasound vagus nerve stimulator. To get the background right, what is the vagus nerve?
So I like to think of the vagus nerve as part of, you can think of yourself as a car, right? You got a gas pedal, you got a brake pedal. I think of the vagus nerve as the brake pedal. It's a gross oversimplification because it's a lot more than just a brake pedal for your body. It's controlling all of your maintenance state systems. So from your heart to your breath to basically how everything is like you keep alive and you don't have to think about it. That's the vagus nerve. That's really the parasympathetic system or the rest and digest system. But for folks that are not well tuned into the field, you can think of it as your brake pedal. That's always the way I like to explain it, because for a lot of people, they have the gas pedal pressed into the floor and they have a very lead foot and they can't get it off and they're just go, 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 go. And you have to stop the car at least every once in a while at a stoplight so you don't crash it. You got to stop the car for maintenance, even if you're on a racetrack. And if you don't have access to that brake pedal, it becomes a really big problem.
So it is the vagus nerve is the brake pedal, the thing that controls or slows down. Can it amp you up too? Like, is it tied in with the gas pedal, or is the gas pedal maybe a different system?
So it is tied in the aspect that you're interacting with the same system in a different way. Because like, unlike a car where brake pedal and your gas pedal are almost completely unrelated systems, they are related, but not nearly as related as your vagus nerve and parasympathetic system is to your sympathetic system. Because it really is, again, maintenance, which is parasympathetic, and then performance, which is sympathetic. They're related insofar as if you never have maintenance, you can never have performance. At least not the highest in performance that you're going to want. I always like to push it from a recovery aspect more than anything else. If you're constantly going and going and going, that's fine. I do that a lot, to be honest with you. But if you don't take the time to recover, then your system is going to start degrading over time. Just like how you build up yourself 1% better every day, and that becomes exponential, you're going to get 1% worse every day. And that's going to bring you down and down and down. And you don't want that.
I wonder if maybe the parallel, I don't know if you've driven like a Tesla, right? Because I have a Tesla, and where the brake and the gas and the accelerator, not gas, is basically the same pedal, right? When you pull off, it starts doing regenerative. And so you really slow down a lot. And then maybe that's a better kind of parallel, because there is this tie of, hey, we want to ramp up and we want to go and we want to drive, not necessarily fight or flight, but activities and actions and thought processes that drive us into fight or flight. I don't know. Okay, so I think I've got a good picture of that. Now, what benefits can we get from stimulating the vagus nerve?
So, are you familiar with the concept of Hebbian learning?
Hebbian
learning. It's a basic concept in neuroscience. So, essentially, the more that you fire certain neurons together, the more they wire together. The less you do, the more they don't. The key in stimulating your vagus nerve consistently, that means like daily, this is still, it's like a workout, it's a compliance thing. But the key to stimulating your vagus nerve consistently means that you wire those neurons together more strongly. That system can be more active when you need it. So the point with the ZenBud is not to put it on and relax. It'll do that for you, especially if you're in a highly sympathetic state. The point of the ZenBud is to train your parasympathetic system through the vagus nerve to be more easily activated on command. That means that when you need to be in a maintenance or rest state, you're able to be in a rest state. And when you need to be in a sympathetic state or fight or flight or performance state, you're able to move to that state on command. Because your body hasn't degraded over time from constantly being in that fight or flight state. It's going to be more useful for folks that are constantly in fight or flight that can't find that brake pedal, but it's still going to help folks that have access to the brake pedal but want to be able to use a little bit more of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I like that. So really kind of, if you think about, doing a curl, if you never do the curl, then you're not prepared. Like when you got to go do the curl, it's complicated and confusing and your body doesn't know what to do. And so you want to exercise that transition into the parasympathetic mode. Okay, excellent. I found the research. Actually, you shared it. I didn't find it. It wasn't that hard.
Yeah, we're not hiding it.
The research paper that you co-wrote and published in May of this year, right? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
The paper talked about hopefully I'm going to say this right, auricular branch of the vagus nerve. What is the auricular branch? Talk about that.
We'll start with auricular. That just means ear, in the outer ear. The thing you see at the ear. It sounds so fancy, but it really just means ear. And it is honestly, in our opinion, the preferred branch of the vagus nerve to stimulate. Because you also have one that's down here called the cervical, which is literally just that part of the spinal column and your neck. But the problem with this one is there's so much other stuff there that accurately stimulating it non-invasively is practically impossible. The current approach is just to shove energy into the entire region, which is not. There's a lot of other stuff there, Chris, very frankly, and a lot of times the vagus nerve is very deep in that region, so you don't get good stimulation. It's the reason why we like to do it with the ear, which is actually located right in the Simba concha region of the ear, and we're able to get much better consistent stimulation with that area. And you can think of it almost like it is an access point to the locus coeruleus and the limbic system, which is part of what's controlling your parasympathetic response or your rest and digest response.
Locus coeruleus. What is that?
That's part of the brainstem. It's part of the brainstem that it essentially interacts with. And I actually recently there was someone that mentioned me on a podcast and they wanted to get my approval to say it, so they sent it to me, which was really cool. And it was kind words, so it was nothing to worry about. And they called it as the dopamine dump, is what they called the locus coeruleus region, which is not what I would call it, but it might be a very layman way of understanding it.
So you're talking about the auricular area branch, right? The end point of the auricular branch having this kind of access to, I like the concept of the dopamine dump, right? So then it really is a foundational. So let's talk, because there are other branches, right? By the way, I didn't even know the auricular branch existed. And as I was doing research for this podcast, I'm like, oh yeah, the other branches. What are some of the other branches, and did you consider them, right? Like you have kind of one a process that didn't work. Talk about that a little bit.
So
please.
Way back when we were getting started with this, we were actually focusing on transcranial stimulation. Way back in the day, that means going through the skull, stimulating the brain. But very frankly, that process is, I know companies that are putting hundreds of millions of dollars into that and will be putting billions of dollars into that process, and it's still going to be very crude as an endpoint. But they're going to be doing good work. That work needs to be done. It's going to be a requirement for us to progress this field in the long term. But it really isn't the sort of technology that can help people now, which is what we wanted to build. There are plenty of other branches to the vagus. Your vagus nerve is otherwise known as your wandering nerve. That's what vagus means in Latin. And it goes all over the place. So there's a ton of access points, mostly in the chest, lower abdomen, neck, and ears. Those are the most common ones. So you'll see vagus nerve stimulators here. Medtronic is, a couple of companies, not just Medtronic, are working on a couple of organ stimulators that are trying to stimulate those endpoints of the vagus nerve, which I find fascinating as a research subject. Terribly non-usable outside of the clinic, but I mean, they're looking for clinic technologies. They don't care about usability in the home setting.
Right.
And we took a look at the cervical and the auricular, so the neck and the ear are the two that are the most accessible for a device that people can actually use in their home. And those are the ones that are the easiest not to screw up with placement. Still very easy to screw up placement, especially with the neck. That's actually one of the biggest problems when people don't see a result there. It's a placement factor and a level, how much fat you actually have in the skin and how thick your neck is, how much muscle you have there. Both of those things will massively impact if your neck stimulator is going to work for you. But we saw that, and we saw the auricular branch, and we said there's less room to mess up with the auricular branch. So we're going to go do that one. The less room there is to mess up, the better it is, especially when it comes to someone's health. So that's part of our ethos.
Was there any research already on the kind of...
Oh, tons of research on the auricular branch of the vagus nerve. That's been
Yeah.
around for a while now. So to give you a quick background of the space, this whole
Yeah,
space
please.
started with the invasive vagus nerve stimulators that were focused on the cervical branch out of LivaNova, which is a UK company. They've done a lot of great work for invasive implants. And then electrocore came along, which is this non-invasive vagus nerve stimulator. Now their wellness branch is known as Truvaga, so they're actually currently selling as Truvaga primarily. But they
I thought
came
it
in
was
as
True Vodka at the time, and I was like,
no, True Vodka, not True Vodka. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. No, True Vodka, and they're like this handheld taser. But very frankly, one of the best scientifically researched cervical vagus nerve stimulators out there. But you hold it to your neck for like 30 minutes, not very comfortable, and has a very high intensity, which is what you need to do if you want to do good cervical stimulation. Not
Right.
great from a user experience side, but good scientifically speaking. And then you have all these knockoff cervical stimulators that never do the research, tone down the intensity way too much, and then claim to do the same thing, which is, I always find it lovely. And then you have these auricular vagus nerve stimulators, which it's younger, because they, after electrocore came in and did their research, that's when the auricular vagus nerve stimulator started to work. But we've actually seen better results, especially when it comes to mental health type indications. We're talking about when it comes to that parasympathetic sympathetic response, like brain stuff more than body stuff, auricular really seems to be working well. If you're looking to interact with your heart or your lungs, you're going to have to do cervical. But if you're looking to try to get yourself into a better mental performance state, that's going to be auricular branch based, especially given that it's pretty much all afferents or nerve branches to the brain with the auricular branch of the vagus nerve. And for the cervical branch, you have both afferents and efferents. And I will preempt...
Afferents and efferents. What is that?
Afferents are to the brain. You could think it's input
Okay.
in, efferents out to the body. If I move my arm, that's an efferent. If I feel a pinch, that's an afferent.
Got it.
And they sound very similar, by the way. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing them enough for people to... Afferent is spelled with Afferent. That's to the brain. That's being pinched. Efferent is Effferent, unless I'm going crazy. And that's out to the body. So there we go.
And if I'm correct, right, the vagus nerve is what they often talk about when they're talking about, I think it's your enteric nervous system, right? Like your gut microbiome and how it communicates. Is that correct?
There is a brain-gut connection with the vagus nerve, but your enteric nervous system is technically a separate entity.
Okay.
The vagus nerve is the pathway that likes to communicate between your gut and your brain, but it's a common thing because there's a lot of incentive to sell vagus nerve stimulation products because there's a lot of vagus nerve stimulation products out there, and they're the ones funding the research.
Yep.
So of course they're going to be talking about how next benefit. You always have to be aware about that with any product in any space. Like that's how our world economy works. So let's just be honest here. That's something you have to be aware of. But your enteric nervous system is a distinct entity from your parasympathetic. It's part of your parasympathetic system, but is not part of your vagus nerve. Those are two separate things that interact and are highly correlated, but not the same.
When you're talking about kind of stimulating in the throat, I think there's a parallel. I think I remember a conversation where they were talking about gargling, right? And then as a way to stimulate your vagus nerve through your throat. Is that correct?
So there's a lot of gargling, breathing exercises, box breathing, that sort of thing. And I've recently was introduced to the world of breathing exercises. I hadn't done a lot of like the deep breathing type work before. I've done it. It's fascinating. It's incredible. Scientifically speaking, you're not directly stimulating your vagus nerve with that. You're indirectly activating your sympathetic and parasympathetic system through oxygen starvation, which has its pros. I mean, it's the same thing as like doing an ice bath. You're trying to train your sympathetic side of the response. Ideally, you're training both. You're doing your ice bath in the morning to train your sympathetic side, and you're doing your vagus nerve stimulator, like, for example, plug ZenBud, what we do, in the evening to readjust back down, to down-regulate. If you want to have that range, then you're going to need to do training on both ends. That's part of the reality. We specialize in training you to go into parasympathetic. That's what we do.
And you mentioned in the evening. Is that kind of the preferred timing, or?
I think it's really up to the user. As long as you get 5 minutes in a day, it's going to help. If you want to do more intense training, get yourself into a sympathetic state and then use a technology like this to get yourself out of it. Because having that range is going to do the most training. It's like those are reps. Literally, it's reps. You're going to do reps from going sympathetic, down to parasympathetic, back to sympathetic, down to parasympathetic, and make sure to give yourself some rest after that because that's intense. That's very intense.
Okay, so this is my next question is kind of overview, but so you're actually taking them into sympathetic and then out into parasympathetic.
We're taking them to parasympathetic. It's up to you to put yourself in sympathetic if you want to do that sort of training.
Yeah.
A lot of people are naturally there, so they're going to get that training either way. So that's pretty easy for us. But if you are someone that's naturally even keeled and you want to train your sympathetic side too, then you have to find different ways to put yourself in sympathetic state. An easy way is getting cold or holding your breath or doing these gargling or breathing exercises, which will help you get into that sympathetic state. And I'm by no means an expert on vagus nerve gargling because I work on the neuroscience and neurotech side. So I am happy to be wrong on this, and I'm happy for folks to disagree with me. So that's my qualifier there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So give us a broad view. ZenBuds. What are they, right? Like some people will be listening to this and won't have, access to a picture. They'll go look it up later.
Okay, cool. It's a headset that has this little blue pad on it that interacts with your auricular branch of your vagus nerve through ultrasound. And you use it to train your vagus nerve. You wear it 5 minutes a day. We see some rather incredible results in our preliminary research. And we actually recently, Chris, you haven't had access to it because I haven't sent it to you yet because it just published like last week. But we've had a couple independent placebo-controlled trials published showing significant results in comparison to electrical devices as well. So not only do you get the comfort add-on, but you also get the efficacy add-on. So that's fun.
Wow. And when you say compared to electric devices, what give
I'm talking about electrical. So comparing an electrical vagus nerve stimulator to our ultrasound approach, which are different in mechanism. We use ultrasound to shake open the ion channels to stimulate the nerve. Electricity is literally causing a polarization event. I've never been a big fan of shocking myself, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's where the field started, so I have a lot of respect for it, but I don't like the pain from it, to be honest, especially when you're trying to get someone into parasympathetic.
Is that kind of like a TENS unit or an EMS unit?
Oh, a lot of the units are. So people have hooked up TENS units to their ear, man, all the time. I would not suggest it. The intensity of a TENS unit is usually far too high for auricular branch vagus nerve stimulation. And then you see these companies like, I worry about doing calls, but there's a number of companies in the space that will essentially create a TENS unit, down-regulate the intensity signal, and charge like $900 for a TENS device. And I'm like, what are you doing? But that's our industry in a nutshell. We're doing our best we're the first ultrasound vagus nerve stimulator in the space. So we're actually the only ones doing this right now. So if you want to try ultrasound as opposed to shocking yourself, come to our website. Come talk to us. Come talk to me.
Ultrasound, shock, your choice. So just to maybe try and further describe it. So headset, right? So a full-on headset. It's not earbuds or whatever. No. And they kind of have earbuds built into the headset.
They do. Right? It's an interesting form factor because what we do is we use your ear canal as a location finder. So you put it in like earbuds, but it's worn like a headset, and then that blue pad will contact the symbiconcha region of the ear. And when that's in contact, you just wear it, you plug into a battery pack or any USB-A outlet. It turns on automatically. You wear it for your 5 minutes. You unplug it. You put it down. You go about your day.
Can you and should you do, like, can I do it while I'm watching TV? And is that a good idea? Or is there some potential?
I like to do it while I am making my morning coffee, which is ironic because coffee puts you in a sympathetic state, but that's its own thing. I find it helps even it out because I'm hypersensitive to caffeine. So if I don't do vagus nerve stimulation ahead of time and don't help upregulate that system, it's a little bit too high of a sympathetic high for me. But regardless, there's nothing contraindicated with watching TV or going on social media with this. I would say personally, though, from person to person, don't do that. Mostly because you're robbing yourself of the experience of going to a full parasympathetic state. Yeah. And you're putting yourself underneath sympathetic or fight or flight stressors, which is what social media and TV actually are. You think that they'd be parasympathetic because they make you exhausted, but that's because they've been bringing you in sympathetic the whole time. Oh, there's this new story. Oh, there's this new thread. Oh, there's this new drama that you have to care about. And you have to care about, and your sister's going to care about it because you empathize with us on the screen because we have mirror neurons in our brains. And do that over and over and over again until we can sell you something because you're exhausted your system and you haven't had any chance to recover. It's sales today. That's
That's
TV
what's
sales.
going on. So I imagine from first device, was the first device something that you just held to test out the technology? Like I love the evolution
Yeah.
of
Oh
engineering.
yeah, no. So we started out with the transcranial stuff, if you remember. So we took some of that core tech and we are like, okay, let's transition this. We had something that we held up to the region in the ear. We actually did these. My name's John Hacker. I will admit I do some biohacking, at least a little bit. And so our initial testing was holding something to the right region of the ear for like 30 minutes a day for a couple of weeks. And we saw some good results with that. We're like, okay, let's build this into a form factor that people can actually wear. And so I don't have to keep holding it in this guy's ear for 30 minutes of the time, or in my own ear, which is where we started. And so we built a headset around it. And at first it was a little bit janky, but then it's like became less so. And then it evolved into something that is a decent experience. And I mean, by no means I don't think any product ever reaches perfection, but we're seeing good results with it right now. And I think that's the thing that people care about most. And we're also not shocking you, which I think is an improvement over the state of the art. So,
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS 60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes, send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code that'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast.
So I don't know if you got some good results from your cranial experiments, or maybe you didn't. And then kind of when did you first go like, oh, this is working?
so that was actually like one of the first times I was using it, even with the unoptimized protocol that we started with. Because again, I'm highly sympathetic oriented by nature. That's part of what drove me into, it's part of what I believe drove me into a lot of my OCD and a lot of my mental health problems in my late teens, early 20s. So yeah, like basically the first time I used it, man, I was like, okay, yeah, we definitely have something here. Let's keep doing this. And it's been a hell of a ride since then for sure.
Has it done anything that surprised you? Like any reports?
Things that I would use to get anxious about, I found myself getting less anxious about immediately. Like I would recognize that this is something that I would usually get very stressed about. And like, okay, yeah, it is. I don't feel stressed right now, but you're right. I would usually get stressed about this. And I got a lot more control over my sympathetic state. Because the sympathetic state is an amazing thing, man. You don't want to just kill your fight or flight switch. You need to have your gas pedal. But when you're constantly there, you don't have any. If you don't have any control of your gas pedal or of your brain, then you can't do anything that you want to do. You're being forced by your environment to become whatever it wants you to be. And seeing that transition was big for me, and I think it's been big for a lot of our users. I mean, at the Business of Biohacking event where we just met by chance after Mark mentioned it, I had people coming up to me saying, not exactly that, but saying that this is the first time that they've been able to, like live their lives and be in control of their lives, which is just incredible to me because that resonates a lot with where I've been. That's what keeps me going now. Before it was just pure spite and stubbornness, and now I think it's expanded a little past that, just a little bit.
It's kind of interesting, right? You get to a finish line and you're like, oh, there's actually a really beautiful vision here. And it's not just like, I'm going to do it because you say I can't. That's a great story. So in your paper, the one we talked about before, you mentioned it reports a decrease in the Beck Depression Inventory score, and the decrease was about 10.3. First off, what is the Beck Depression Inventory score?
It's not just the BDI, which is the Beck Depression Inventory score. There's also the BAI, the PCL5, the PSQI, which are related to anxiety, depression, PTSD, and sleep, respectively. And this is a preliminary study. This is not 1,000-powered pharma study that's had $100 million put into this. I don't have that much personal wealth to be putting into this, to be honest with you. If we did, I would. But we did see some rather incredible shifts because these are the same measures that are used to diagnose an initial diagnosis layer for these indication spaces. And to see a very strong remission rate, which essentially means that people are no longer qualified as moderately or severely any of these disorders across the board, except for sleep. They saw a slight improvement, but we also weren't recruiting for sleep, so I'm not too miffed about that. It was very strong. It was very strong data. It's very compelling data for the start of this. Since then, we've had a number of These were more on site, so these were more immediate studies, taking a look at, for example, emotional biasing and a couple other things, showing very significant results and controlled results that were independently done. And that's where we start to get into gold standard research. Because we ran that study, Chris. For better or worse, that's going to have bias to it. We can't control that. Well, we did our best to control for that, but we can't control that we're going to have bias in whatever study that we run personally. I will say that it also reflects what our customers are telling us, but that's its own thing, and there's also bias in that as well. But in the independent studies that have been done, that those are reflecting that as well is very strong. So we'll see over the course of the next couple of years, Chris. It's going to be really interesting how this research develops and how this product and how this industry develops over time.
You mentioned emotional biasing. What do you?
Yes.
Are you just talking about the bias to the test results because of your?
No. That was one of the independent studies conducted.
Okay.
Which, very frankly, I'm not as much of an expert on emotional biasing because it's not something that is in my research expertise. It's why it's an independent study. It's a study that someone else did. That wasn't the only thing they looked at. They also looked at memory tasks and a couple other performance tasks, and they saw significant improvements there too. It is really interesting because the independent party that tested this also has a vested interest in a different company in the vagus nerve stimulation space, and they did a comparison, and we still measured up, if not exceeded. So I find that is rather compelling data, personally. Though, I mean, like, we can always do more data collection, Chris, which is part of like what gets, I'll be honest, that's part of what ends up becoming a problem in academia, which is definitely something that I've seen, is you end up getting discouraged to collect data until you get a PhD in a lab. And then by that point, you're beholden to this grant system, which is clearly fragile as hell, given what's happened more recently to it. So you're beholden to a system that has no stability in it. And then you end up being told that you can't do it because you don't have millions of dollars. And the only way you can get millions of dollars is to do it. So you're just forced to sit there and do nothing. And that's where 90% of our academics are. And they're being forced to go back and forth and over again on the basics of the basics and never do anything. And that's the reason why academia seems like it's doing nothing, because it realistically, 99% of it is doing nothing. And then you have the 1% that actually does stuff. And they're the most senior researchers in the senior labs that they're most accredited, and they get all the grants. And so you have to join those initiatives, and that's fine, but it's very narrow focus, and they get bias from their time throughout the system. It's a very inefficient system. But also, it also has less bias system than industry research, so there's pros and cons to both. I have a lot of respect, and I also have a lot of disdain for both systems. So maybe that's the balance there. In my own approach. Yeah.
Well, maybe you'll continue to get more balance as you continue to use the ZenBuds. So just to go back to talk a little bit about that Beck Depression Inventory, there was a change of 10.3. Talk, if you can, like, what's the scale? Because I just don't have any perspective on. You could say,
that's fine.
Yeah, and maybe compare it to other devices, right? Because here's the thing. Hey, this one does a 10.3. This one can only do a 1.3. So we know that it's significantly more valuable. Maybe that's a good.
We
place
talk
to
about
start if you can.
The absolute change in the study, because that's the most relevant data to the measures that we're using.
Yeah.
If I'm going to talk about comparison-wise, then the best measure to be using is remission rate, which is, you can consider, I'll use the Beck's anxiety inventory because that was the primary inventory they were using for that study. Was anxiety was the main focus of that study. You have 4 qualifications where you can be on the anxiety scale: severe, moderate, minimal, or none. You could be one of those 4. And it was a requirement that people were either in moderate or severe at the start of the study. Of course, some people dropped. They were excluded from the group before the study starts because that's just part of recruiting bias that happens. But the point was that we wanted to have people that are moderate severe to see how they changed over time. By the end of the study, we saw 78.6% of folks were in the minimal or none category. So that was very significant. When we compare this to studies that have been done with traditional electrical vagus nerve stimulators, the most we've ever seen is like 11%. I'm sure someone will pull up a study that has 12 or 13, but the point is that there's a rather order of magnitude difference in the percentage of people that actually went from category change from moderate to severe diagnosis down to minimal or none. Again, there are limitations with the study. I've mentioned this before. It's a small study. This wasn't a controlled study. And that has a lot of limitations. We do now have that data that's been independently done, and that's strong data. but it wasn't on the same indication. So there's going to be some more work that needs to be done with anxiety, with depression, with PTSD. But it has been some incredibly strong results for the stage that we're seeing and for the sample sizes that we're seeing. And the level of significance that we see is very, very strong. It's a clinical level of significance in these early studies. And as we continue to develop this technology out, I'm sure we will see more. And I'll also emphasize that this is also a approach is very well tolerated and doesn't have severe adverse events, unlike some other approaches to depression and anxiety that I could talk about. So that is something that we're really passionate about and something that we're excited to see develop as time goes on. Again, though, this is not indicated for those indications yet. This is early stage research. We're working on it. We'll get it there, Chris. Trust me, we're working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So how might you compare? Have you looked at kind of other treatment modalities, whether it's EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization, reprocessing, medications is probably something that you were just alluding to, and MBCT, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. You have any compare and contrast there?
I have some comparison contrast. Part of the problem is it's difficult. The optimal way to do this would be to get all these groups in a singular study and have the same protocol, which no one ever does because it's very expensive and has very little net value. Not for research, but for industry. Again, industry is the one funding this research, so why would they do a real comparison? And if you take a look at each website for each of the things that you're talking about for companies that are pushing each of them, they will all say that they are the best and all the others are the worst, which is rarely the case. But I will say that based off of the independent data that we've collected and based off of the data that we've seen in these different approaches, we have seen a higher remission rate for what we've been doing. We saw around 10% for the electrical vagus nerve stimulators. We saw on average between 30 and 40% for the drugs after 5 months. Our study was for 4 weeks, so a much quicker time for effect, and we didn't follow them for 5 months. So it's not a true comparison. Again, it's not a true comparison.
Yeah.
But even with that, we are still exceeding what the drugs were doing. Which is also interesting to me. It's also interesting to me that we see 10% for some of these electrical VNS, because from my understanding, like base reality, if you're recruiting from the public for people that are mildly severely anxious, you're going to see between 10 and 15% remission just through nature.
Yeah.
Just through time. Because you're going to be picking people that are already in one of those states. But again, this is the type of question where, I might actually go talk with my CSO after this recording about this a little bit more. It's something that we've been talking about a lot lately, is doing good comparisons is really hard.
Yeah.
But I will say this, tolerability profile wise, we seem much more highly tolerable than most of the other approaches in the space for compliance metric wise as well. And we are seeing some rather incredible results from efficacy level wise. Really talking about that remission rate as the main metric. You can talk about the absolute point change too, which is, again, it depends on where you're starting on the curve too. Where's your average starting point, Chris, for these different studies? That's going to change things. Your population is going to change things. The timeline that you're setting it on. A week is usually, people don't do 4 weeks for their studies. Usually they do a lot longer than that because they need that to see signal. We saw a signal in 4 weeks, which was incredible. We actually saw a signal in the first week, which was rather incredible. That's not common for this indication space. So that makes it a bit harder to care. Most people aren't publishing their week 1 data. So we can't say, okay, week 1 this, week 1 that. We could say week 1 this versus 5 months that, and we still measure up quite nicely.
Yeah.
But it's also like strawmanning us a little bit, to be honest with you, to do that sort of thing. Because we gave that other approach 5 months. Why wouldn't we also have 5 months with you? So we're running some longer studies now. Which will give better comparison metrics.
The first thing that pops to my mind is like HRV, right? Heart rate variability as some sort of indicator of your, so is it an indicator of your ability to manage stress, or whether you are in a stressed versus unstressed method and state? And have you kind of tracked any HRV numbers with ZenBuds?
We have tracked HRV numbers with the ZenBud. Most of it has been customer reports to date. We have an ongoing study, Chris. I think I talked with you. This is a biohacking too.
Yeah,
about
maybe.
This. We have an ongoing study that is still collecting data on HRV over time. One of the annoying things I find about HRV is that the different companies calculate it differently. Aura versus Whoop have different algorithms, not only different sensors, which makes it very annoying to use clinically speaking or in a research setting. But from a base reality setting, if you're tracking your HRV day to day and you're seeing it improve on a moving average, that usually means you're doing something better. And we've had a lot of reports of people's HRV improving quite considerably, rather quickly. And I'm not going to give you a direct percentage here because, very frankly, I don't think it's highly relevant from person to person. If you're seeing a trending average improvement over time, that's usually a good thing.
Yeah. Very cool. You kind of sent me some prep questions, so I wanted to dive into some of those.
Go ahead.
You've said that the modern society is engineered to keep us in chronic fight or flight. What do you mean by that?
So I think this really comes down to our media informational diet. So I don't think it's a big news that the news network is meant to put you in a sympathetic state. It's meant to stress you out so that it can sell you that you need to keep watching. You need to keep watching because some piece of crime happened in your neighborhood or in the larger society neighborhood because someone died across the world from a freak accident. Now you have to worry that might happen to you. These are things that are putting you in a sympathetic state. And then you take a look at social media and how it operates. It's constantly trying to get you addicted to the algorithm. And addiction really is. You're either addicted to being in the sympathetic state with the news cycle. You're addicted to being in a constant approval-seeking state, which again is, at least in my opinion, it's an extension of the sympathetic state, in your social media algorithms, and your advertisements that pop up. They're all meant to put you into enough of a attention state to be aware to listen to them as opposed to ignore them, which is what you're going to do in maintenance state. And so by forcing you constantly be in that aware state, you train that upper end, that sympathetic side, to your balance, and you overtrain that in comparison to your parasympathetic side. So you end up having a much overactive sympathetic system. And it's part of the reason, again, this is an opinion, but it's part of the reason why anxiety is so much on the rise, is because we end up having, especially our kids, introduced to the system from the day they're born now, that's constantly sympathetic overtraining them. Everyone has, all the large companies that are spending billions of dollars have access to our kids' fight or flight nervous system from birth to try to sell them and build them into the most buying machine that they can. And it's progressing exceedingly well right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, fundamentally we're wired for fight or flight because that's the most important state, right? Because it is the state where you are actually going to survive or not survive, right? And so it's easy to get into it. It's probably harder to come out of it.
Well, we are built to be hair trigger on the sympathetic state. I will say that. We are built to be hair trigger on fight or flight because it's better for you to react to the shadow in the bush 9 times out of 10 when it isn't even there, because that 10th out of 10 times it is, and the guy that didn't just got eaten, and so their genes are no longer in the gene pool. Yeah. So it's selected to be a hair trigger on the fight or flight response. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the more important state, because if your parasympathetic response isn't working, you're dead.
Yeah.
Literally, your heart stopped beating. Again, your genes are out of the gene pool. You're not contributing to the future generations either. You need an ability to go into parasympathetic state in a healthy parasympathetic state, and you need to have the ability to go into a high sympathetic state as well. It's just very easy to hijack the sympathetic state, and very profitable too. And when something is profitable, people are going to keep doing it. And you can't blame, well, you can blame them, but maybe it may not be useful to, because it's how our system is built to incentivize that. And so, of course, it's going to keep happening. And as long as we're okay with it, it's going to keep happening to ourselves and the loved ones around us.
So, we're about to get into our wrap-up questions. My first kind of thought for somebody in the audience listening is, one, okay, I would like to get into the parasympathetic state on a consistent basis to train that muscle, if you will. I'd like to do it without shocks. so ZenBuds
shocking.
Right, good check. So ZenBuds are interesting to me. What does it look like? What does the cost look like?
So the base cost is $399. We've partnered, Chris. I think we can give your audience a 15% discount off of that.
Awesome.
So that should help. You end up, and you can grab, we have a 90-day money-back guarantee and a natural 1-year warranty. So if anything pops up, you send it back to us. We're happy to send you another one or to repair it if possible. And if you don't like it after 89 days, that's 2 months more than all our trial participants needed, send it back to us. We'll give you a full refund. That's how we operate. If it's not working for you, we want you to send it back to us.
Yeah. Very cool. We'll give that link here in just a second.
With feedback too. If you don't like it, send it back to us. Also give us feedback. We love feedback. We'd love to know how to improve the product.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not going to question you so that you don't send it back. We're going to question you so that we can learn from it and make it better.
We want to. Because I mean, like, Chris, we're a younger company right now. So all the feedback at this stage is extremely helpful to understanding how we can improve this product and experience.
Yeah.
So we can help even more people. And like, ideally, like, I want to see this in every household, not just across the US, but across the world. And to get to that point, we have to improve the product as much as we can. And so that means that all of our early supporters and users need to be very frank with us about what they hate and what they love.
Very cool. All right. We're about to get into our wrap-up questions. Anything maybe that I didn't touch on?
I think we talked about a lot of really cool things. Honestly, I think we covered everything, Chris.
Okay.
Unless there's something that you think that you wanted to dig deeper in with me.
No, I think we're good. I mean, I had some other stuff, but I think we really covered the important stuff that I really wanted the audience to get and me to get a grasp of. So.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, let's hop into these wrap-up questions. John, do you have a target age that you want to live to?
Oh, infinity, if we can.
I like it. And this presupposes the answer to this next question. How long do you think humans can live?
I don't think there's an upper limit. Well, it defines what you define as live, Chris, but I don't think there's technically an upper limit.
Awesome. I love that. Very few experts give me the same number for both questions, which is kind of an interesting tell. What are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets, let's call them shortcuts, to longevity and a long health span that you would share?
So stress response is massive. You need to be able to master your brain and your mental health, both so that you can perform to a higher level and so that you're not hating every day of existence. And I would say that one of the biggest things that shifted things for me, this is before even the ZenBud, is being aware of what chains you actually have on you, what biases you have on you, what things are limiting you, what you're able to think and what you're able to feel, and being very aware of those and starting to work on releasing those chains in your daily life.
And I think what impact they could have. So if you have a bias that you can't live past 90, it's going to be a lot harder to live past 90 than if you have a bias that you can live forever.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's little doubt on that. Excellent. Are there maybe 1 or 2 things that people get absolutely wrong regarding longevity and a long health span?
So I think one of the things that people get wrong on a consistent basis is, of course, there's the death cult that we exist in right now. Which that's what it is we're told from a very young age that we will die because it's almost an evolutionary thing. And to learn to accept that is an answer to the existential crisis. Not the only answer, but it is a answer to the existential crisis. On the other thing, I think and so that actually limits a lot of the development that we could be doing. And we're still pushing. There are a lot of people pushing to make these changes, but this is like the problem of our species, not just our generation. Our species right now is figuring out how to really knock out that aging problem, which is of critical importance. And so the longer you can live until we do that, the better. And so that comes down to health habits, which I think more than anything else is decreasing your risk factors, which the biggest risk factor is stress on a consistent basis. If you can figure out that risk factor, most other things are actually minor. Of course, I'm doing the same thing that I hate industry is saying, there's one golden pill for what you want. But that's the thing that I focus on is the stress factor for sure.
Excellent. John, how can people contact you?
So if you want to get in contact with me, you can actually go to our website, zenbud.health, and right in the contact card, it's either my COO or I that are currently managing that. I don't know how long that'll last, but while it does, feel free to take advantage of it. Get in contact and say hi. And
is that they can get there straight from the affiliate link, right?
Yeah, they can get there straight from the affiliate link.
Okay.
Which will be in the description.
Yes, and I think it's going to be zenbud.health/LBTN, live beyond the norms,
yes.
LBTN. And I'm just going to share with those audience members all of the affiliate commission. So there will be a commission. Thank you. All of that commission is promised to Operation Underground Railroad. So for those in my audience who may or may not have heard me kind of tell this before, because I actually do have it associated with my book, is 100% of affiliate commissions goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember the movie The Sound of Freedom, which is a great movie about a horrible topic, which is child sex trafficking. Operation Underground Railroad is doing an amazing job of trying to clean up all of that. And so 100% of affiliate commissions goes to Operation Underground Railroad. And that's zenbud.health/LBTN. And there's a 15% coupon code there. You need to go there to get that coupon code. Also, great link if you want to get in contact with John. Anything on social media you want to point people to?
At ZenBud Health. Feel free to follow our accounts. Say hi over there as well.
All right. And then what in the near future are you excited about?
I'm actually most excited about our answer to the AI problem, but that feels like a completely different pod. Like we could talk about that for another 30 minutes, but I think there is an answer that we can have to this AI era that we are in right now. And right now we focus all this money, all this time on developing these better and better language models, which have a cap, but I'm sure we will go to the next version of this very shortly. There's enough money there that's going to happen. And the capabilities of these models is increasing exponentially. It's like 2 months for doubling right now, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's an exponential curve, and we definitely haven't hit the upper point yet. And so we have to ask ourselves, how do we keep humans relevant in the event of a singularity event, which is almost, I honestly believe it's a certainty at this point.
Yeah.
Or it's very close enough darn to it that if there isn't an event, humanity is in a whole different crisis where our technology has completely regressed, and that's its own problem. So as long as we're continuing to progress our technology, which is part of what makes us human, we're going to reach that singularity event. And I think that the answer to that actually comes down to neurotech. That is the answer. Not to integrate, which I am very concerned about Sam Altman's Merge Labs, which is a thing. He put a lot of money into integrating AI in humans, and I worry that Elon is going the same route. But to actually expand our consciousness directly. And that is, if someone here is really interested in how to do that, I have some really tight ideas on how we can accomplish that with these neural interfaces that are being developed right now. It'll also be a choice. You can either integrate with this large language model that will eventually integrate you as a hive mind. I didn't say that. But or alternatively, you can expand your own consciousness to be on level, if not exceed the capabilities of these LLMs. And you're also not going to be a whitewash average of humanity, which is nice. Because I find that the communalism approach is going to be base AIs, and the individualistic approach is going to be enhancing capabilities of humans one at a time. But regardless, you can't choose either if you're in a state where you can't perform, which is what you're going to be if you're stressed all the time. So that's the little tie in there. But that's something I'm excited about, to see which way we go as a species. And I really hope we go the individualistic route, because I feel like the communal route is just so boring.
Yeah. Very cool. I love it. All right. So you can find John, zenbud.health/LBTN, as in live beyond the norms. There is a coupon code there. And again, all affiliate commissions will go to Operation Underground Railroad. And then on the socials, ZenBud Health, right? All one word?
Yeah. At ZenBud Health.
ZenBud Health to connect with him. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been great, Chris. I loved it. All right.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.